and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent, and it is spring election time, and so we are interviewing the candidates for Hudson City Council and Mayor. We've completed the 2 mayor interviews, and now we are on Council District 4, and my guest is Paul Berning. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right, Paul, I think I've interviewed you before. Seems to me that you might have run for office before.
I did, but that was actually Mike Foley that interviewed me.
Oh, okay. So Mike did those.
Yeah, you were out of town.
All right.
So Mike did that one.
That's good. That's why we have backups for this kind of thing.
That's right.
Well, then you know the drill. So what we've asked, we had some questions that went out to everybody, so everyone's had a fair opportunity to review it. And you can go, there's not big limits on our timetable, but just telling candidates they're self-limiting, I guess. And so you tell us now, you get to tell us in the first question a little bit about yourself, your qualifications, and your background.
Okay, well, thanks, Jamie, again for having me on. It's always a pleasure to run for office. You know, the one time that I did do it, it was quite an experience, and so now I feel like I can contribute a little bit here in the city of Hudson, a home that my wife and I, who have been married for 13 years, have adopted as like where we want to be and where we've put our stake in the ground, and we just love the area. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Richmond. My family and I, moved to River Falls just in like around 1990, and I went to a small private Christian school there, Good Shepherd Christian Academy. Graduated from there in 1999, and actually attended UWRF for a small stint. My wife graduated from there in 2003, and so the other cool thing is Hudson actually has a little special place in our heart, because this is where my wife and I both met working at the McDonald's here back in 1999. So yeah, we've been married for 13 years. Our kids go to school here, so we have 4 children, 1 in middle school and 3 in elementary school. And just to talk about a little bit of my qualifications that I have in regards to running for this seat, one, I love to ask questions. That's one of the big things I think that's missing on this council.
That's something we have in common then. I like asking questions.
Yeah, you do like asking questions, so we're sitting across from each other today. So that's one qualification. Also, the business acumen that I can bring to the council, not only from running and owning small businesses myself, but also working with small businesses all across the metro area and parts of western Wisconsin. I get to see their challenges that they face from rent and payroll and cash flow. And so I understand how every little single dollar that they're asked to part with can impact their ability to not only deliver goods and services, but also take care of their employees and pay them and make sure that they, their check clears every couple of weeks. So I have a business background, finance background, a technology background, so those come into play, especially in our modern era, and I think I can bring a lot, especially as a little bit younger candidate. Looking at the future of Hudson is very important to me, because we have put our stake in the ground here. So,
well, and there's one organization that you didn't mention, but you're a member of Rotary.
Oh yeah, so thank you, Jamie. I'm a Daybreak Rotarian, active in that. Want to be more active, but I have a lot of other responsibilities. I'm also a current trustee on the Hudson area Joint Library, and so I'm a citizen representative for the city of Hudson. And we're going to talk more about that, I guess, maybe into the questions, because that is one of the issues that we'll talk about. So
very good.
Yep.
Well, why is it that you want to serve on City Council? You've told us what makes you qualified and some of your background, but why would you want to dedicate a couple Monday nights every month and then some to the city of Hudson?
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed civics from a very young age, and I've always been compelled to want to get involved in my community. It wasn't until we moved to Hudson when we decided this is where we're planting our flag, and this is where we're going to be, that I started really getting involved. And it started some with Rotary and some other groups that I work with outside, around the county and around the city. What made me want to run for city council is I've seen some of the issues that our city's been facing, especially with the end of the year, the budget coming up, really nobody asking questions on the budget. It was very much a motion and a second, and it took the mayor a little prodding to get them to roll up the sleeves and look at the budget in whole and just try to make trim something off of it to make it a little more palatable for the citizens and for our businesses here in the city. So that's really why I'm running. I feel like I can make an impact and a difference, especially to my neighbors. And talking with them, that was a big thing, is property tax. Just in talking with them and even hitting doors a little bit recently has been, that's been the main theme, is our property tax rate. So.
Okay. So my next question, maybe that's the segue to it, but what do you see as the most important issues to be addressed by the city council in the next 2 years? Yeah,
so I mean, there are a lot of issues that we're going to face. I have my top 6 and then a de facto 7th, which is just there. That 7th one is the library, of course.
Okay.
We have been really kind of segmented out by the county and have been defunded by 30% from the money that comes from the county. All other libraries in St. Croix County are getting funded 100% of the levy that's supposed to be passed through the county. Very, very complex issue. I don't really want to get into it on here because I don't want people using this as a way to go to sleep, but we need to fight for our library, and I think I can do that most effectively because I understand the issue. I serve on the board. And by default, it's, as a volunteer on the library board, as a trustee, it is my job to fight for our library because that is one of the pillars of freedom in a free society. So that is, like I said, kind of the default 7th issue. But there are 6 main issues, and I wrote them down because I want to make sure I didn't miss one.
Sure.
And I'm probably sure that this is going to spill over into other questions, but the new fire department is a big issue, right? Okay. So we have that coming up, and that's not only for the city, that's for our partners as well. So we have to take that into consideration, not only the city, but also our partners. We have infrastructure. There's a lot of infrastructure projects that need to be taken care of coming up in the next couple of years, and we need to make sure that we're not either over bonding or overstretching our levies to meet the demands of getting those fixed. Lakefront park redevelopment is one that is an issue. Is it a top issue? I don't know if that's like the top issue, but it is an issue that's in the forefront and has been discussed quite frequently in council. The St. Croix Meadows redevelopment hits our council district directly. I mean, that is right at the southern tip of our council district. And a lot of the people I'm talking to down in that area are concerned about the traffic levels and what's going to happen over there when you've got 2,000-3,000 office spaces, a baseball park, a convention center, all sorts of different great things that are going to happen there. How does that impact them? How does it impact their property value? So that's a very important issue. EMS is on the list of questions. I mean, that needs to be looked at and vetted thoroughly, something I don't think the current city council is doing a very good job on, so we can talk more about that later. And downtown parking, which has been something that has been rolling down, like tumbleweed for years and years and years, and I think there are maybe some good options out there. So you want to know what the top are? It's all of them, right?
Okay.
And so when I'm talking with folks out there, they're blown away, but they also know, a lot of them understand that those are issues, and they're asking me, that's a lot of issues. How are you going to tackle all those? Well, it's not really a matter of how are we, it's we have to. I mean, I don't think we really have a choice, and it's tough decisions that need to be made in some cases, and fun decisions maybe in others, like lakefront park development, if we have the money for it. So one can cross over to the other, but if we don't get this in the right order and we don't tackle these issues, the city could be hurting, and our partners, Village of North Hudson, Town of Hudson, Town of Troy, St. Joe, who's a member of our library board. If we don't get some of these ducks in a row, we could impact them as well with their levies.
Okay, so you had mentioned levies and tax rates and so forth. So do you see any areas where the City of Hudson could reduce spending without reducing services?
Yeah, that's nobody wants to talk about cutting, right? Nobody wants to talk about cutting services. I think right now, looking at, there certainly are areas that we can do a better job in spending overall. Kind of the most glaringly obvious one that we're trying to tackle now, but again, the current city council, I don't know if they're coming to the resolution that we should be, or are asking the right questions, is EMS.
EMS, all right.
That I'm not saying that we need to cut that I think we need to do some exploration with some people that are not emotionally involved, and have them look at it and then make a decision from that. So that's one area. Roads, cutting roads, you can't cut roads, so that's not an area that I'd really cut. Of course, we'd squeeze every last dollar we can out of the contractors for bids and all that. But one other thing, and I'm not saying that we need to cut this area, but I think what was handled last year, the right questions were not asked, and that was in hiring of police officers. Outgoing Police Chief Marty Jensen, who I like and respect, and I think he's done an admirable job as our police chief. Not an easy job in today's environment. Here's a situation where an outgoing police chief is asking for 3 officers without knowing what the new police chief is going to want, or what kind of deployment he's going to put out there, or what he wants out of his officers or his patrolmen. And I think we dove into two officers way too quickly, especially approaching levy limits. We really owe it to our taxpayers, especially the business owners and the citizens of this city, to look at different options and not just be like, well, that's what the chief wanted, so let's just do it. We have surrounding townships. The village of North Hudson, for instance, has a police force that maybe we could talk about teaming up with. That's not a bad thing. St. Croix County, how can we contract with some of their deputies in order to alleviate the financial burden on our city while we build our tax base, which I think is going to build into another question that you're going to ask me, while we build our tax base to be able to support 2 officers and not just bite off a $300,000 chunk out of our budget.
I saw a figure, we have 27 officers now?
That I'm not certain on the whole.
All right. But you're nonetheless, bottom line, you think we're about 2 officers too many?
I wouldn't say we're 2 officers too many. I think we're 2 full-time officers on our payroll, just like that. We should have explored other options before just putting 2. They wanted 3, they got 2. I'm glad we have them because we do need them. But I think we could have had a different, an alternative approach to that, to kind of slowly ease into the financial burden of 2 police officers.
All right. So now moving on then to infrastructure, which you mentioned up front as far as one of the more important issues. So the city has a plan, 5-year plan. It's kind of gets revised every couple of years for maintaining and improving the infrastructure we have. Do you think it's sufficient? Why or why not?
Well, I just saw recently that the Public Works Department wants to hire an outside firm to come in and evaluate that. I think our city engineer, Tom, has done a great job of going around and finding the locations that need to be taken care of. Hiring an outside firm is just taking more money from our tax base and our taxpayers when we really are so close to levy limits. Jamie, I'm not sure that it's a good idea to be going outside when we have staff inside the city that has done it for years, and I think has done a pretty good job. Are there some projects maybe that have gone too long? Sure, but cities face that all the time, and that's one of our obligations as a municipality, is to make sure that there are good roads.
So is that a done deal, the consultant?
No. I'm just saying that's a path I wouldn't want to go down.
Okay.
So but I think overall, to answer your question, I think we've done a pretty good job.
Okay. All right.
Well, one other thing on top of that, though, I do believe that we, as a city, and this is a common theme out there when talking with people in the city and in the district, is we don't have enough sidewalks, and that's the same thing my wife and I believe too, because where we live, the crosswalks and able to get to different shops is not the best. So I think we can do a better job of creating some sort of infrastructure for pedestrians to be able to walk and cross and be safe.
I just had somebody who mentioned they were at the Hot Air Fair and tried to park and walk to EP Rock area. There
Yeah,
was
not
no
easy.
sidewalks.
Not easy.
Yeah, they were
So,
walking down
something
the
needs to
street.
be done with that, but we also need to take a very good approach on not violating too much private property rights and that too. So evaluate,
Right.
and see what works.
All right. Then this is more of a development question, but do you think the city of Hudson should continue to annex land?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I've thought about a lot over the last few months while, considering my run and then actually declaring was annexing more property from our surrounding townships. We have to be very careful on how we do that because we don't want to bite off more than we can chew, developmental-wise, city staffing-wise, to maintain it and watch it. I think one area that would be great to expand on is our existing business park up off Hanley, even though that's not per se in my council district. Overall as a city, that would be very good for us because the TIF district on that has expired. So we wouldn't be looking at a developer to come in and say, hey, we need this, and we need the taxpayers to kind of wait for their share for a little bit. Right now we have a very large TIF district in our council district, District 4, with St. Croix Meadows. So, that would be a way, but other areas of land, I think we want to stay away from single-family housing developments from the city because those are net neutral for revenue, and it wouldn't really help our tax base that much considering we're very unique in that.
All right. So the question is a little bit off or maybe possibly misperceived as far as folks out there thinking that the city goes around and annexes land. It's the landowner that's adjacent to the city comes to the city, asks
Right.
to be annexed, and the surrounding township then also has some input on that, but ultimately the city decides whether it's a good idea. So you're saying you would lean towards business park, but for someplace like the Atwood property on the intersection of Carmichael and Vine, if it's more residential, then you would be opting out of something like that.
I don't know if I'd opt out of it, but the right presentation has to be made. So, if we're taking on another obligation with a net neutral revenue stream, all that does is put more housing in there, and then we're having to possibly hire more police, more fire, more EMS, and have more city staffing on for, any of the services that we provide. So I would tend to shy away from that first, but we have to look at it. You can't not look at it. But I would probably shy away from more single-family development for right now.
Okay, so what sort of redevelopment should take place on Lakefront Park? You mentioned about Lakefront Park, not sure whether it's the most important issue, but it's been singled out by a couple people, and it's getting a lot of talk at the council level. So what's your position on redevelopment in that Lakefront Park area?
Yeah, it can be a great asset, even more than it is now. And it is truly, it's when you talk about natural resources, what a great natural resource we have for our city. And most of the city is kind of, the back is turned, right? Second Street is where most people go down, and the lake, or the river is really kind of just avoided. When it comes to Lakefront Park redevelopment, I like the presentation from the group that did the study on it, on how to redevelop it. And I like the idea of maybe having a community beer garden that our local restaurants can each partake in and utilize to help raise money. The boardwalk is an interesting concept along the river, and making more boat docks so people can dock and make it a destination for tourism. That can really bring even more vibrancy to our downtown. So how we approach it, what I would like to see is the boardwalk and better boat access so that downtown can have more tourists and bring in more revenue. And that brings property values up, which brings revenue up for the city, and in the end, everyone wins. Would I make it a priority? I don't think so. If we don't have the money to even deliver our essential services, or if we're approaching levy limits, I would rather not invest the money.
So it's more of a want, in the want category than the need category for you?
Oops, sorry. In my opinion, it's more of a want than a need. But it is an issue, and it's out there, and I'm assuming if I'm elected, I'll have to take a vote on it. So.
Okay. So now downtown parking, which has been kind of a growing concern with every new restaurant and or bar that opens downtown. Right. So what do you think, what would be some of the solutions that you would be in favor of for parking in the downtown area?
Yeah, it's an issue that I've been finding at the doors people want to talk about, but they also realize that it's been years and years kicked down the road. And so I would like to see some sort of public-private partnership in that. If we have the money, we're not approaching levy limits, and we're not like draining every resource we have from our taxpayers to make this happen. I would like to see something with the Wells Fargo parking lot. If we can make some sort of 2-decker, 3-decker in-ground, structure, something that isn't going to take away from our tax base, that will add to it, but will also make it so that people want to come and park and patronize our restaurants, go to the bike shop, go to the candy shops, go to our boutiques, and spend money and hang out in Hudson. I think that's great. As far as specifically what I want to have go down there, I just know that one, I don't want it to be a burden of the taxpayers. I want it to be something that will help generate more revenue, right?
So when you say the taxpayers, because, that's generally, you're probably talking about citizens of Hudson.
Right.
But, there's residential taxpayers, and then there's the commercial and the businesses that benefit from that. So
without a doubt.
So do you think that not even the businesses should be paying for some of this?
And they do, because if there's more revenue coming into their business, the value goes up of their business and the property value goes up. If they want to go sell it or sell that business, they can say, hey, look, I'm up 20% when the assessor comes around, which most taxpayers don't like. That comes around and says, wow, your property's worth a lot more. The revenue goes up to the city. I'm not saying that they shouldn't kick in if there is something, but I understand that the Chamber of Commerce and a business association are working, and some local business owners are working together to come up with a parking solution. And I think they're going to come. I have faith that they'll come up with something that's fair and equitable to all. Okay. And we'll see something come good out of it.
Okay. Now we get to the EMS. They always save that one towards the end.
Thank you.
So now, so what do you think? First of all, it's a bit of a loaded question because it assumes that we have a problem with our EMS.
Okay.
And then, so it says, what could be done to solve the EMS problems, plural? So what do you think about that? First, I guess it's left open in that way for you to identify what, if any, problems there are, and then solutions.
Yeah, so, it's been a long time that there's been issues or they've been looking at what to do with our local EMS. It goes back even before my wife and I and our family moved into the city here. I think there was a study done like 7 or 8 years ago showing some of the significant revenue shortfalls that are coming. Last year it was shown by our finance director that in 5 years we're going to go from $386,000 in municipal contributions, including our partners, to about $1.27 million. That is a lot. That's over 3.5 times what we're doing now.
In 5 years?
In 5 years, yes. So we have issues. We have issues financially. We do have some issues, but the bottom line is we had a solution that was presented to us last June, and it was clearly rejected not only by the current city council and by some of our partners as well, just in how they voice their opinion. There's no question that I was a proponent of the integration with health partners. I'm not going to deny that. I really can't. I'm on record, saying that. But I can say that I took I felt like I took a leadership approach in my neighborhood, specifically in our development. I invited folks to our house and invited the chief of EMS, who was unable to make it, unfortunately, the chief of the EMS service that was going to come in, and the mayor come in and answer any questions that concerned citizens would have. We opened up our house to that. Whether or not that was a good idea, I don't know. My wife would beg to differ, right? But we took a leadership role on that, and the city council decided not to do that. So they took that option and they tabled it. But it's very clear that there was a lot of emotion involved. Not only, city council, but citizens, emotion all across the board. My solution would be, let's disconnect the emotion from it. And I'm not saying that one of us, whether it's a city council member or and someone from the EMS service or from our commission, I think we all need to disconnect and find someone who is not emotionally connected to this issue that we can call upon and say, hey, we're all having a bit of a little scrap on this, and we're not focusing in on what this should be to our community. There was a lot of just facts, right? I mean, alternative facts, I think some would say, maybe on both sides that were out there. So in June at that city council meeting where this was voted down, there were a lot of citizens, not only in the city, but also in the townships, surrounding townships and our partners, that came forward and said, let's have a study. Let's do an independent, no strings attached. Now I'm adding a few things there, but I think we need to do a study of our EMS service. And I think that is something that would be worthwhile to invest, because even through the first 3 weeks of this year, the new model that they voted on, that who I'm running against voted on, it has not fully taken effect. And I don't think that's right to our citizens to experiment with models, really, and hope that they work and figure out and shift to make sure they work. But we need someone who's not emotionally involved. That's the key. We need to do a study, and that would be one of the first things I would do on the city council, would ask for a motion to do an independent study, something that the ad hoc committee, the public safety committee, the EMS commission, and the city council have all failed to do up to this point. And I would like to take the leadership role on that.
Okay. Then, last but not least, the other issues that you feel the council should address. So not necessarily most important, but other issues that may be out there that we haven't already covered.
Yeah, so I think our relationship with our outlying partners has been severely stressed. And it's not just over EMS or anything else. Like, it's been a long time. I catch that when I'm talking to leadership on any side. You can just feel the stress between intergovernmental partnerships. It's stressful, right? And you're a leader in our community as president of the school board. And when you meet with other government entities, it can be contentious. Some of our partners are at levy limits. I think we need to take that into some account when we're making our decisions, but we need to do what's right for our citizens first. So I think I think an issue that's not really a city-related issue so much per se, like directly impacting the taxpayer, but I think it's more of just a neighborly thing, is we need to work on our relationships with our partners, maybe not playing politics so much with issues, and utilizing our partnerships for what they are best, and that's our neighbors, that's our friends. So when we do go to annex a chunk of land, we're not fighting with someone. Or if we go to them for a liquor license, it's not, hey, we'll charge you $100,000 or $50,000 for that liquor license. It's, hey, city, you've done it, we're solid with you, here you go. So I think that is something that we should approach as a council as a whole and as leaders of our community.
Okay.
So that's a big one.
So relationships with the others. Any others then?
Not off the top of my mind, nothing in my notes. Again, I just, yeah.
Any other closing remarks? Because I want to give you, that opportunity. The others have taken that and have gone a lot longer than you have. So I have to commend you for your brevity and your straight to the point. So,
yeah.
Any other closing remarks then?
Well, we've got a big decision on April 3rd, right? That's the vote. So I'm asking for your vote on April 3rd. I think our city's reaching a crossroads, a point where we need maybe some fresh leadership on the council, someone that's going to ask questions. And I feel like I'm very capable of that. I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to ask questions that maybe it won't be so comfortable, but in the end, we can make it just like a smooth rock in the pond. All those years of rough waters will produce something beautiful, and our city is great. So I ask for your vote on April 3rd for common sense leadership and coming together as a city.
All right, very good. Thanks, Paul, for
Thanks,
coming on the
Jamie.
show.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal.